I'm here with Chris, who's a game designer at Battlegoat Studios, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the third. Is it the third?
It is the third.
It's the third Supreme Ruler game, and this time you're moving back in time. Why did you make that decision?
Well, a lot of it comes from desire that we've seen expressed in the community, that while the Supreme Ruler franchise has clearly been a strong war game, we have previously visited the years 2010 and 2020, and a lot of our players have said, well, we really like the mechanic, we like how the game plays, but a lot of our community has a desire to do historical games. This is where a lot of our community come from, is playing classic board games, and this is all historical stuff. So they had a strong interest, and the Cold War was an era that we felt fit well with the engine, and that we could deliver a compelling game experience.
So what is it about the Cold War era that you feel in particular that lends itself well to this kind of game?
Well, clearly there were some localized conflicts that give us an opportunity to explore the war game side of our game engine. At the same time, we've always had a strong diplomatic and economic aspect. And when you look at the Cold War, you're really dealing with a situation where you had two spheres fighting off against each other. You had the U.S. controlling the NATO sphere and the Soviets in the Warsaw Pact sphere, and it was the collision between those two spheres. And so the diplomatic elements and economic elements that the game already contains, with the additional work that we're doing as far as espionage, covert operations, and other features along those lines, gives us an opportunity to really explore the tension between those two spheres and the efforts that the players can make to bring their sphere up to a size where it simply causes the opposing sphere to collapse.
It also sounds to me like it's a little bit of it's an interesting setting because the player is forced to sort of try to grow his influence, yet not do something that causes a nuclear holocaust. Because a lot of the time in a war game you just want to conquer, you want to do it as fast as possible, but this sort of makes for an interesting intellectual challenge as well to keep it.
Yeah, there's certainly that aspect, and we haven't forgotten our megalomaniac friends as part of the community, that we still offer sandbox modes where the players can conquer. But yeah, the campaign that focuses on the conflict between the Americans and the Soviets, there really is that push-pull, that you always have a desire to take actions to further your sphere, whether it's through diplomacy or conquest, to take out regimes that are standing in your way, but you are always faced with that fear of Armageddon, that while you're taking these actions, you're watching the global tension is rising, and if you push it too far, then yeah, you are facing Armageddon. Mutually assured destruction was one of those things that is a key component of the Cold War. Everybody was aware of it, and it really affected the actions that every nation took. So, and we really hope to be able to reflect that the nation's in our game.
Can you describe a little bit how you're treating these historical events, such as proxy wars, in the game, and what the player can, how much freedom there is for the player to explore alternative history?
Well, we're still balancing some of these things in the closing months of development. The desire that we have is to find key events throughout the Cold War that, as they occur, are going to give the player a strong connection to the era that they're playing in, so that they have the sense that history is out there. At the same time, the game system that we've always offered has had a lot of freedom for the player to really push the boundaries and affect the things that go on. So it's very easy for a player to change the course of history very early in the game, and that's the real challenge that we're working on, is to find all the events that we can that enhance the player's experience without really limiting them from exploring all the various options that they want to try out in the game.
And you're using a system to try and, to keep a little bit, to ease the player's burden with micromanagement a little bit. Could you talk us through a little bit how you divide, because it's such a huge map, the whole world that you're playing on, that it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yes, and that again goes to feedback that we'd gotten from the community from the previous title, is that the world is a big place. So the first steps that we've taken towards resolving some of this is that the world has been divided into a number of theaters, and these are sections of the world that represent areas that you might find yourself in conflicts. And by dividing the world into theaters, this is going to allow us to give the player specific areas, to give specific control settings, and specify these areas as high priority, low priority, and to make sure that the troops that they want get into the theater that they need them to be.
So where are you at in development right now, and when can we expect to see the game?
Well, currently the expected release is listed as end of Q2, and that still looks to be where we're going to be. The development, we've got a solid working engine at this time. It's playable, and a number of the features are in. There's a number of features that we're still balancing out. There's still a lot of work that we're doing on the map. Obviously, having done our previous one in 2020, we could get current data was fairly easy to find. Now we're working on 1950s data and making sure that, just like with our previous title, the populations of the cities are accurate for 1950s, the industries within a country present an accurate economic model of that country, and we also have a lot of graphic touches that we're still working on. One of the big changes from our previous title to the current one is that we've now begun to use 3D terrain in the game, where the other one was just satellite imagery. And so the addition of the 3D terrain has definitely provided a better game experience. You feel far more connected to the map when you're down there. It feels much more lively, but we're still getting some of the tweaks of the new 3D terrain to work exactly the way we want it, to make sure that it gets the experience that we want to convey.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.